Stride.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank the Chancellor for advanced sight of her statement and add our firm support for our armed forces. Madam Deputy Speaker, as the Chancellor has made clear, these are very serious and concerning times, and the developments in the Middle East are already having profound consequences for our economy. Oil prices have surged above $100 a barrel for the first time since the 2022 energy crisis. That alone is enough to have huge knock-on effects for households and businesses. Families filling up their car will already have noticed petrol prices increasing. Fixed-price energy tariffs have either been increased or pulled from the market. So we are already seeing British households worse off as a result of this conflict. I'm grateful to the Chancellor for updating the House on the meetings with other G7 finance ministers, and I welcome her commitment to support action to ease pressure on global supply by using strategic oil reserves. That, however, will only go so far. As the Chancellor said, the longer this conflict continues, the more likely it is that we will see a sustained period of higher prices. Of course, that in turn will also have implications for interest rates and for our cost of borrowing. The longer this lasts, the more likely it is that higher inflationary expectations become anchored. If that happens, monetary policy will need to adjust accordingly, which may mean higher mortgages for homeowners who have only just begun to see some relief. And of course, gilt markets have already been responding to these events, which could mean that forecasts we were given just last week from the OBR end up looking very, very different. We must continue to monitor developments closely. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, where we on this side of the House clearly differ with the Right Honourable Lady is in her approach to the economy in the run-up to this crisis. Her gross mismanagement has left us far more vulnerable than would otherwise have been the case. Inflation, to which she refers, was bang on target when we left office, but thanks to the Right Honourable Lady's choices, it rose back up to almost 4% last year, the highest in the G7. And inflation remains elevated. That is far from ideal, given the threat of a significant further spike in energy prices. And of course, extraordinarily, the Chancellor has just now reconfirmed that the government will press ahead with a rise in fuel duty later this year. And borrowing is running higher than was forecast when the government took office. We are spending well over $100 billion a year on debt interest alone. That leaves us far more vulnerable to rising borrowing costs. And the government, of course, is continuing to impose ruinously high taxes on our oil and gas sector and choosing to rely on imports instead of maximising our own domestic energy supply. That is proving to be an incredibly short-sighted approach. But as the Right Honourable Lady has just told us, there will be no change in direction. That is the wrong choice. And more broadly, of course, business confidence has hit record lows and unemployment has risen back to pandemic levels. So our economy is weaker as a direct result of this Chancellor. Now, last week, Madam Deputy Speaker, at the spring statement, the Right Honourable Lady had an opportunity to change course, but instead we got no action at all. Just breathtaking self-congratulation and denial. She had a vital opportunity to come to this House with a plan to get the economy growing. But she did not do that, not least because this week government have caved into their own backbenchers who prefer higher welfare spending over fixing our economy. So today, let me reiterate our offer to support the government if, even at this late stage, and particularly given the gravity of the current global outlook, they do the right thing, show some backbone, and come forward with a proper plan to cut welfare spending and strengthen our economy so we can properly support hard-working families through this difficult time. This is the very least that the British people deserve. Finally, Mr Speaker, could I ask the Right Honourable Lady, will she urgently reconsider her decision to implement the first increase in fuel duty in 15 years? Likewise, to urgently reconsider her decision to continue with the crippling taxes being imposed on North Sea oil and gas producers. On the Fingleton review on nuclear, can she clarify if the government is accepting all those recommendations as ministers previously committed to do? Can she give further details on what additional economic action is under consideration internationally if the conflict continues? What measures is the government considering to support households in the event of a sustained period of higher prices, and what action is being considered as part of the financial secretary's work to support those reliant on heating oil? Are the government tracking the Iranian regime's illegal funding sources to ensure UK financial systems are not facilitating funds that are being used to support repression? And can she confirm that there is sufficient resource available in the Special Reserve so that our brave servicemen and women have the support they deserve?
Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Right Honourable Member for his questions. The Government believes that the best way that we can protect families and businesses from this conflict is through de-escalation. And we heard nothing in the Shadow Chancellor's response about what the opposition's view is on de-escalation. We believe that it's important that we get back to the negotiating table and don't escalate this conflict. I'm not that sure that that is the view of the opposition party. But we also know that commitment to greater energy security can help guard against shocks. And after inaction and delay from the Conservatives when they were in government for 14 years, this Labour government is committed to investing and building new nuclear, and that's why we're backing Sizewell C and also small modular reactors, both funded at the spending review, neither funded by the previous government, because this government is backing Britain's energy security. This Labour government is backing the industry of the future, such as carbon capture and storage, funded at the spending review, not funded by the party opposite, because we back Britain's energy security. And through the National Wealth Fund, we are investing in floating offshore wind and in our docks, funded in the spending review, not funded by the party opposite, because we back Britain's energy security. In 14 years, the Tories did nothing. So they failed when we needed new nuclear. They stood by and allowed the loss of gas storage facilities at Rough. They failed to fix the broken planning system to enable us to build renewables. And they had an effective moratorium on onshore wind, which is the cheapest form of energy. We are taking a different approach in the interest of our economy and energy security. On energy bills, I would urge the Right Honourable Gentleman not to scaremonger. The £150 cut to energy bills that I announced in the budget will continue, as confirmed by Ofgem. We removed the failed eco scheme and we removed a number of levies off of bills. On heating oil, those conversations will happen this week and we are working closely with MPs, with colleagues in Northern Ireland to make sure that things are working well. But the Minister at Desnes met with the heating oil sector on Friday and spoke this morning to the Competition and Markets Authority. There is not currently a problem with supply, but where members have individual issues around supply, they should make sure they get in contact with Desnes. On fuel duty would have risen by 8p compared to if I had have used the plans that I inherited. And we've had two budgets, both of which all of the parties opposite voted against, which extended that freeze in fuel duty. So it's a little bit rich now to hear the opposition saying that they want to reduce fuel duty when they vote against budgets that froze it. And on the energy profits levy, I think the Right Honourable Gentleman has a short memory because, of course, he was in the Cabinet that introduced the energy profits levy. and they introduced it for a reason, because of the windfall profits that were being made by the energy companies and the need to help consumers with bills, which is exactly what we have done. On the public finances, again, I'm not sure if the right honourable gentleman listened either to my statement last week or my statement today. The deficit has reduced from 5.3% to 4.2% of GDP. It's the first time in 6 years that the budget deficit has been less than 5% of GDP. And in fact, in the 14 years that the Conservatives were in office, borrowing was higher than the G7 average. It is now lower than the G7 average, and it's coming down in every year of this Parliament. And on inflation, I'm not going to take any lessons from the party that took inflation to more than 11%. Under policy supported by the party opposite. And on welfare, I've got to say, for the former Work and Pension Secretary to say that we should be spending less on welfare, well, it would have been nice if it had done something about it when he was in charge. We are reforming the welfare system that they broke. And on Finkleton, we commissioned the Finkleton review because we are determined to build nuclear power, unlike the party opposite. On oil reserves, we have 90 days' worth of reserves of oil imports, and as confirmed by the G7 today, we will be making further announcements of that. On gas reserves, it was the party opposite that closed the storage facilities at Rough, and National Gas have confirmed today that our gas reserves are at a comparable level to last year and the year before that, and that the numbers being reported are utterly misleading, because gas comes from a number of sources. It comes from the interconnectors, it comes from liquid natural gas, and it comes from our storage facilities. So again, I would really rather that the party opposite didn't scaremonger when people want certainty. On money laundering, of course, we have the very strictest rules around money laundering, and on the special reserve for defence, of course, we will make sure that the Ministry of Defence has all the money it needs for providing the support for our armed forces.
Chair of the Treasury Select Committee, Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Madam